the city that never sleeps definitely has made some changes recently. A place that you and I have both called home recently with the New York Knicks firing Tom Thibodeau even after they made the Eastern Conference Finals. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I was that was pretty surprising. I was pretty shocked that he got fired. I thought that because they did make the Eastern Conference Finals this year and they had a good season overall, I thought maybe he would probably get at least another year and maybe build some continuity and see what would happen the second year with the current team that they have. But I guess they were saying, oh yeah, we don't see. I think they see that as a ceiling as the conference finals with him, and they didn't believe that he would be able to bring them to that championship level. So I think that was part of the reasoning. But I was still shocked and surprised that they fired Thibodeau, especially that quickly after the season was over for them. What were your thoughts?
I think as you were saying in the episode that's coming out soon, I think that coaching is you're the head of the snake. So I think that when you're the head of the snake and the head of the ship, I think that you're going to be the first one blamed. You're going to be the first one praised. I think that it's very commendable that they went to the Eastern Conference Finals and made it that far. But I also think that championship is the expectation for certain owners and certain organizations. And I think that whenever you have a hard fought season, I think when you're out not necessarily early in the early round, but I think that when you don't execute the way that the owners or GM wants you to execute, I think that, rash decision making kind of is the first method of operation, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. I guess he had back-to-back 50-win seasons, so he was doing well in the regular season. But it sounds like it was just all a postseason, just maybe also the coaching style and his system and how he has his system overall with the Knicks. So I think that was probably those little things that played a part into why they believed he should get fired. But it's still crazy to hear, especially after making the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, and I think that the kind of synopsis that a lot of people have when it comes to Mr. Time is that he runs players into the ground. And I think that again, when it comes to championship organizations and how you want to win, I think that everybody has a different methodology as far as how they want to execute and how they want to win. So I think that to a degree, you should give him some type of credit because he has executed at a high level. Now, granted, the task at hand as far as winning the championship wasn't accomplished, but I do definitely think you have to give some credit where it's due as far as making the conference finals for sure. So yeah. But speaking of changes that are happening in the NBA season, did you see that Adam Silver talked about changing the All Star game?
Yeah. Hmm.
What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Their proposed change is to make a USA versus World format. So I think change was definitely necessary. I think they've attempted to do different changes throughout the last couple of years. This past year with the tournament format, they had the three different teams of NBA All Stars, and one team was the winner of the Rising Stars game. That team. So I think that didn't really go over well with the fans, just overall, just how things were executed. So I think change was definitely necessary. So I think it'll be interesting because there are a lot of international All Star players and USA players. So being able to have that, I think they mentioned as well when Adam Silver was speaking this week on just different sports programs, how because the Winter Olympics is this year, that we just had the Summer Olympics last year, just having that continuation of the USA versus World, I think will be very interesting. I think it'll just bring a new interest for the game. I think it'll also just help with the competition level, and if something that could possibly be built on, or maybe if something that it could be a theme one year or a theme during certain times. Maybe if it's during an Olympic year, it might be a good to do like a USA versus World to kind of preview the Olympics. What are your thoughts on the possible change of the NBA All Star format?
I don't know if I'm becoming an old man, but it's a lot of change. And I definitely think I don't ever want to stand in the way of evolution, but I think that when there's a lot of change, I definitely think that there was an issue with the formatting as far as how people digested the system, but I think that changing the format, I mean, I guess we have to see what happens. I definitely think with the hockey and how they changed the format, it was a big success, and I definitely do think the NBA is taking inspiration from the NHL as far as how they execute as far as the All Star Game format. But it'd be interesting to see how the competition exists. But I think there's a lot of change going on with the NBA, and I think that it could be good or it could be negative. But I think that there's a lot of change coming to the league, and it's going to be interesting to see how the fans digest it and how is it going to be too much change for the worse or is it going to be a change for the better? And I think that we have to just, see how time progresses. But, for me, I think it's just I'm kind of old school and just kind of how my methodology is. So like, maybe I'm just becoming an old man. So what do I know? Like,
Hmm.
so yeah.
Yeah. Would you want to see them go back to the traditional East versus West and just the main thing, just have the players really care and try hard for the game? And you think that would ever change, or you think it's just because of the timing and how things are and how the All-Star game is as far as where it's at in the schedule and have how players have that week, so they kind of want to have that time to really relax and kind of get ready for that last half of the season? Do you think there's anything that really can be done, regardless of the format, that could help bring excitement back to the All Star game?
Yeah, there's a lot of things you could do. I mean, one would be, well, we're not gonna give away anything for free. We might have to be a consultant, or something like that. But um, I think that one thing I will give away is the officiating. I think that regardless of the NBA talent, officiating has a big play in terms of how the game flow and game speed is digested. So I think rule number one would be changing the rules, how players can draw fouls, how players can receive technicals. I think that's the step one. I think that a lot of times when you're talking about changes, you're trying to change everything. But I think when it comes to basketball, it's a child's game. And I think that you got to start with the rules. I think if you start with the rules as far as the competitiveness of it, because if you look at EuroLeague basketball compared to NBA American basketball, the officiating is different. And I think that's why USA basketball was more easily able to digest because it was a different type of game that the fans wanted. So in terms of, the players union and, collective bargaining, how that works as far as the rules change. But I think that's step one in terms of kind of righting the ship and just moving in the right direction. What do you think?
Hmm. Yeah, I can see either way. I think East versus West was always fun to see. 'Cause I think you always had, because you usually have most of the players would always be coming back, especially the superstar players. You have those built in. We already know LeBron would be in. We already know Kevin Durant would be in. So having those formats was always cool to see. I think it really is all up to the players and how they want to execute the games. I think there's a way where you can make it both entertaining and competitive. It's just finding that balance. So I think overall it's good, but I like how they're trying to change the format. So I think that in itself brings some interest into the game. But I think we'll just have to see. But I could see either them doing the All Star game where it's USA versus the world, or just the regular East versus West would be good. So we'll just have to see what they do for the future.
And now the only problem that may arise if you have a player with dual citizenship, so they have citizenship, in the USA and then another country, like, just how would the player decide which team he plays for? I could definitely see some controversy with that, but we'll kind of see how that kind of plays out.
Hmm.
So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it might be a situation where either the player will get to choose, or depending on the number of All Stars you have, it might be a situation where they might lean towards one side just for the formatting, as far as the people who are helping overseeing and schedule everything. So they might have someone who maybe they are American born, but they do have that citizenship. They might have them as an international starters to help with the numbers as far as just getting the actual players itself. So I think that's one thing that they have to see, depending, because you might have people that are American born, but because they are doing the USA versus the world, they might have to limit the number of American All Stars and the amount of international All Stars. So that might be one possible hiccup for the plan. I'm just very excited to see what they have in store for the future.
Indubitably.
Continuing with what's going on in the NBA this week, the NBA Finals starts. This between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, what are your thoughts on this matchup for this year's 2025 NBA Finals?
I think it's good for the league to have newer markets or smaller markets into the actual finals. I think it's a chance for certain fan bases to kind of let their voices be heard. I think as far as economically, I think that that's a good source of revenue for those cities and places. But I think both teams are young. Both are tenacious teams. I think what it's going to come down to between the Pacers and the Thunders is officiating and veteran presence in the locker room. I think veteran presence as far as Alex Caruso or James Johnson, just how they can weather the tide and just be a voice of reason in the locker room. I think that's going to be my top two keys for the matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it should be a good matchup. Both teams have been playing very well going into this NBA Finals. They both have very interesting styles of play. The Pacers, the ball pretty much moves around, doesn't really stick with one person. It's really a whole team aspect where really the system is the main team as far as just how they play. And then you might have Siakam that be a leading scorer. You might have Halliburton that might be a leading scorer. You might have there's all the different role players that might step up and catch on fire and really just be able to lead the team. So I think they really do a good job just being able to have that whole team aspect and everybody's a star in their role. So they do a good job with that. And then with the Thunder, you have SGA. He's the leader of the team. He's been able to uh, do well just as far as how many points he's scoring during the playoffs and just how the team's also feeding off of him. They're playing really well defensively. So I think it should be a good matchup, like you were saying. It's both small market teams. I think really if you're a fan of basketball, just the game itself, it should be a really fun series. So I think overall we have something good to be looking forward to.
Considering that these teams are smaller market teams, so finals appearances isn't something that, are regularly available to the organization. Do you think that they should let their coaches go if they do, or either side ends up losing the finals?
No, definitely not. Especially with these two, you don't want to. I think we've seen you definitely need continuity. I think especially if you make the finals, I don't think that's anything you want to break up unless if there's like any like major meltdowns or any just big drop offs. But I think the coaches have both done very well. They're both very good coaches and they do very well in the regular season. And this playoffs, they both have been coaching extremely well. So I don't think you want to get rid of either of these coaches, especially if you just make the finals. So no, I would not get rid of any of them for after the finals.
Definitely, definitely. I think that, as you were saying, when you have coaches that make it this far, I think of having a coach that has the locker room and the air in the locker room is very important. I think that, when you have a lot of change in organizations, when teams have already excelled, I think that's where the drop off kind of happens as far as teams and organizations. But I think that hopefully, everybody can still keep a tight knit group and you can kind of see what's going to be on the rise for these two smaller market teams for sure.
Hmm. But yeah, we're both saying it's going to be a good matchup. I'm really looking forward to this finals. And then to end off this video, we're going to do a quick finals prediction. So, who do you think you will win this year's NBA Finals?
If I had to choose one, I'm thinking if I had to choose one, it might be a coin flip for me. This depends on the officiating. I think that's going to be a coin flip, but if I had to choose one, I definitely would want to see the Thunder, I would say, win the NBA Finals. I think that as far as, the run that SGA has had as far as winning the MVP, I think that'll be a storybook ending for the season, I think. But it's also the Indiana seeing them win. I think they had a hard fought journey, but I think I'm going to side with OKC on this one. What about you?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm also going to go with OKC. That'll be nice to see, like you're saying, with SGA, he won the MVP just to top that all off with the NBA Finals. That'd be cool. And then just the whole story with the Thunder, how they were able to build up. I think a couple years ago when we first got there, they were struggling, and then they've been able to make steady progress. And last year was the big leap where they became the number one seed, and there was back to back years number one seed. And I just really like their style of play and just overall the team and how well put they are, just how together they are as a team overall. So I think I'm gonna go with the Thunder, but also with the Pacers, they're also a good team. They also have a good sense of togetherness in how they play. And it would be crazy to see because with Tyrese Halliburton, he was voted in some player poll being the most overrated player in the league. So to come back and win the NBA Finals, just have the team where nobody really saw them coming, that would be pretty interesting. But I think I'm going to go with the Thunder. I think it should be a good series overall.
Being that these are one of the younger teams kind of in the NBA, do you think that this organization, as far as the Pacer and the Thunder, are going to influence other teams to kind of go more younger kind of skew for their roster? Or do you think these teams making it to the finals have any effect on future roster decisions for other teams?
Yeah, I think so. I think with the NBA, you definitely see just different eras and different transition periods where you might have at first it was the big three era where you have all the superstars on your team. Now we're in an era where it seems like you just need to have a well-rounded team. You need to have, of course, you need to have a superstar. We also need to have stars that are in their role and people that are really able to really affect winning and just be able to perform effectively and efficiently. So I think we'll definitely see the trend of going more younger and just seeing teams that have players that they might not necessarily be well known, but they'll be very well as far as being a star in their own role. Especially I think now with the 3 point shot, you have 3 point specials. You have a person that might be good on defense. You might just have someone that's good playmaking. So I think we'll see that transition. But I think especially with how the games play today, I think we'll see everybody start to transition to see if they can get young talent on their team.
Definitely, definitely. Veteran presence, referees. two biggest takeaways. Mark my words on that one. Indubitably.